It's Kathy with Santosha School, and just a few minutes before the Ayurveda cooking class. And today we're going to be making a Kale Limeade and asparagus, mushroom and rice, and kale and sweet potato. So let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if you have any comments as well. I'll spend just a little bit of time going over just the basics of Ayurveda. Nice to see you, Shauna. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions along the way. And hopefully I'll be able to get it all done in time. And got all of our ingredients out here. I'm going to make a few modifications just based on some of the people that are in my house. And I mentioned before, I actually am a vegetarian and, well, a pescatarian. And it's nice to see you, Shauna. And my husband and my sons are not. They are, what are you? You eat meat. And so
I eat chicken nuggets, preferably dinosaur.
And so they're probably going to have a side dish of meat to go along with it. But that's the nice way that I'm able to kind of cook for this vast variety of folks here, is to have a lot of vegetables as the base, vegetarian meals as the base, and then they can add in along the way. So I'll talk through some of the options that you have based on your dosha. And hopefully, if you don't know what your dosha is, you can certainly take some online quizzes to find that out, although working with a Ayurvedic practitioner or counselor or coach is the best way. I'm actually having CCF as my afternoon tea because I've been waiting to make the green juice, so that's what's in here. And let's see, I've done actually pretty well today. This morning I actually started out with green juice, and then I had khichdi for lunch. So it's been hopefully this will be a really nice, easy, digestible, cleansing day of food for me. Yay! So we'll go ahead and get started. And just go over again the basics of Ayurveda. Ayurveda means knowledge of life, or science of life. It's the sister science to yoga. And I mentioned last week, I really love Ayurveda because it's really accessible. You know, all the things in my kitchen can start to, not all of them, but I can set up my kitchen so that it becomes a medicine cabinet and really start to find some healing through food. Ayurveda doesn't mean that, you know, I have to make lots of drastic changes and start from what's the basis. So I've really enjoyed incorporating Ayurveda into my life and sneaking it in, no, actually, bringing it into my family's life as well. So let's quickly, I'm going to grab my whiteboard. I figured out how to do this backwards, which was fun, because last week it was backwards. But we'll quickly go over the basics of Ayurveda. There's a lot of sun that's coming through, which I'm not going to complain about. So the 5 elements around Ayurveda, which we can see in everything, food and people and animals, plants, are space, air, fire, water, earth. Space, air, fire, water, earth. Space, air, fire, water, earth. And those 5 elements arrange themselves into the doshas, or the organizations. And so space and air is vata. Fire and water is pitta. And water and earth is kapha. And as those organize, they have certain qualities, or are actually pairs of 10 opposites, qualities that really are prevalent in these doshas. And so as space and air combine to become vata, the qualities of vata are dry, light, cold, clear, subtle, mobile, and rough. So you look at like foods like popcorn, really light. It's also quite dry, and popcorn. It's also roughage. It can be used as roughage. And then you have so those are some examples of food that's vata. Then you've got fire and water that are arranged to make pitta. And pitta, the qualities of pitta dosha are oily, hot, and sharp, fermenting, spreading, liquid, and it sparkles. So you start to think of things like a red pepper or jalapeno, sharp taste. There's a lovely, sparkly, oily skin to it. So examples of pitta, very basic. We're just going through the basics. Water and earth combine, and they arrange themselves as kapha dosha. And kapha dosha, the qualities for kapha dosha are oily, dull, and cool, thick, soft, and sometimes hard, stable, heavy, gross, smooth, and sometimes rough, and liquid. So those are the qualities, and it's important to remember those qualities because as we start to think about Ayurveda and cooking in the kitchen, a few things to remember, like increases like. So if in your household you've got predominantly kapha people, so those that have this stable structure, right, have perhaps an oily skin, perhaps, then we want to start to avoid or decrease kapha-genic foods. So things like if you've got a lot of kapha people in your family, perhaps not as much ice cream, right? Ice cream's heavy, it's cool, it's thick. I know some of you might be going, ugh, but it'll increase kapha. So that's kind of how you start to look at this. In my household, I have predominantly pitta, although my husband is kapha pitta. And so we tend to decrease spicy foods. And there are times where, again, if there's kapha that's predominant, it's sometimes there's a draw to that kapha. Oh, I want more. But really we want to try and reduce that. So in my household, I'm trying to reduce kaphagenic foods and also reduce pitta foods. So we'll talk about a little bit more around how to do that today with our menu. So today we're making Kale Limeade or lemonade. We're making kale and sweet potato with ginger as a side, and then asparagus and mushroom rice with black pepper. All of these are, for the most part, tridoshic. We'll talk through again some of these ingredients that we'll be using. So remember, vata, dry, light, cold, clear, subtle, mobile, and rough. Pitta, oily, hot, sharp, fermenting, spreading, liquid, it sparkles. And kapha, oily, dull, and cool, thick, soft, stable, heavy, gross, smooth, liquid. All right, we might come back to this. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started because I don't know if you all remember this at all. There was I got a little sideways here. On the Food Network, there used to be a show, and she would always start off with a drink. Now, usually alcoholic, but there's no alcohol in this one, but I love it. It's really, really, really awesome. So, again, kale is great in the springtime. Oh, I should probably pause and talk about that. So, we talked about the doshas. It's springtime, and springtime has a little bit of that kapha dosha quality to it, right? So, except for today here in Indianapolis, where it's lovely and sunny, kapha dosha or kapha for spring, that means things are a bit heavy, right? Things are in bloom. Just the thought of creation, or actually creation itself, reproduction, babies. That's Kapha dosha, right? Because there's some thickness, there's some building to it. And so springtime is actually Kapha dosha. So we want to start to lighten things. And kale is a beautiful, beautiful ingredient that helps do that. And we'll talk through why that might be in a moment. But let's get the drink started first. So, I actually had some leftover greens from a salad, and this has, I don't know what it has in it, chard, kale, and spinach. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in there because I had a little leftover. And again, you know, using kale, go with what's fresh. Fresh is best. But I happened to have this baby kale that was prepackaged and it was on sale. Really good sale. So I'm going to use that today. You can, you know, start to look at any of the greens. And right now, bitter greens are best for kapha for the springtime. I picked some fresh mint. I have a mint plant. I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm going to throw that in there. Mint is cooling. So that's important for me, pitta dosha. And let's see here. What else am I putting in this? You and I forget. Oh, apples. So I have my little handy dandy compost thing. I need to continue to move you guys with me. So apples. So pitta dosha. Apples can go a couple of different ways, meaning sweet apples are great for pitta dosha. But sour apples are not. And so this happens to be a Honeycrisp apple, which again, you know, it's, what do you say? It's not like a Red Delicious kind of sweet, but they looked the best at the grocery store. That's kind of what I go by. And it can be somewhat sweet, so Honeycrisp is what I went with. And you can use apple juice, of course, but again, fresh is best, and these looked really good, so that's what I went with. So I'm taking one apple. You might ask, well, how much greens did you throw in there? I really don't know. I just took a handful and threw that in there. Right now, I'm just going to be making it for me and Ewan. Are you going to have some? He said he might have a little bit. I made some last night as well, just because, again, it's super, super easy, but I put a lot of ginger in it. So that's the next ingredient that'll go in there. But putting a whole apple, I put probably, you could say, a couple handfuls, at least 2 cups of greens in there. Probably could go more. I put a few sprigs of mint in there. Again, that's for me, for pitta dosha. And in the past, I've made this green juice. I also put cucumber in it. And but it's still a little cool today here in Indianapolis, so I'm not going to put cucumber in. And honestly, I haven't looked at my cucumber to see how good it is these days. So, ginger. So, ginger is also a really great little ingredient for kapha dosha, or for springtime as well. It aids in digestion, and so I'm going to put just a little bit. Last night when I made it, I probably put 1.5 inches of garlic in there. It was a little too spicy for my 13-year-old, so we're going to go a little bit less today. Because again, as an afternoon treat, it's nice. It's getting your digestion going. So I'm going to peel the garlic. Peel the ginger. I know there's easier ways to do it, but this is fine right now. Chop it up just a little bit. Throw that in there. Then, okay, so lime. The original recipe for this actually had you making it into a lemonade. And for some of you, it's great. Go ahead and make it into lemonade or use a lemon. I'm choosing to use a lime. Again, for me, I tend to go pitta high pretty easily, and so lime tends to be a lot more cooling for me. So anytime there's something that says lemonade, I usually turn it into a limeade. So if you have a question, should I be using lime or should I be using lemon? Shoot the question here, but you can go either way, either lime or lemon. And you're gonna use, or I'm using about half of a lime, green skin lime. Squeeze that in there, because I don't have one of those fancy squeezing things. There we go. I am going to add, so if you have a juicer, it makes this totally easy and different, but I don't have a juicer. I'm just going to use my blending machine. And so I do need to add in a little bit of liquid. You can either add water if you'd like. I'm going to add coconut water because I have some, and again, it's cooling, and I just like the flavor of it. So depends on how liquidy you want it to be. I probably added, I don't know, about a cupish. So let's go ahead and get that started. It smells already really, really good. So turn that on. I love the color of this green juice. I love the color of this green juice. You know, my other son will go to the grocery store and he goes, oh, hey, can you get me some of that green juice that's already been in the bottle and it's been in there for a while? And the color of this is just like so fresh compared to that. So here we go. I strain my green juice just because then it's just easier to digest, and some people like it easier that way, that it's more juicy versus smoothie-like. So I'll go ahead and strain it. I throw, not one of my son's favorite things to do, but I throw the foamy stuff, the leftover stuff after I strain it, into our garden, and so he runs it out to the garden. Yeah, it doesn't. He says it smells bad. It doesn't smell so great after it's been sitting for a while. But I did this. You know, this is obviously a bigger container than I needed, but I did it just so that it would strain faster. So let me show you really quick. So that's the stuff that's, you know, not kind of going through the strainer. I can let that sit for a little bit, but pretty excited to try it. Last night when I put too much ginger in it, I added just a little bit of maple syrup to it, which was nice. But this morning when I did it, it was just perfect. So, Ewan, do you want some?
Thank you for the offer, but no.
Thanks for the offer, but no. How about just a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine.
Lola's watching. Why don't you come in?
Oh, hi, Lola.
Come on over.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we'll give Ewan a little bit.
I prefer not to be on camera.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, so this, look at that color. It's kind of like green beer. Love it. So good. Let's see. No sweetener needed at all. That nice, yum. That nice apple, that sweet apple was just enough sweetener for it. I can taste the ginger in there, so it's got a little bit of a kick to it. And then, of course, the greens make it have that earthy, but then adding in the apple makes it nice and sweet. Really yummy. Okay, I'll be sipping on this for a little bit. Let me clean up here and we'll get ready to talk briefly. Yeah, we'll talk briefly about some of our ingredients today. So let me go ahead and get lights back on. I'm still here. Follow me over right this way. Cool. And this way. So our ingredients for today. Hopefully you all can see that. So we have kale. It's bitter, astringent, and sweet. It's cooling and dry and rough. And if you remember the qualities of Vata dosha, dry, light, cold, clear, subtle, mobile, and rough, you'll see that you've got rough, dry, and cold. And so those predominant kind of qualities to kale will cause Vata to increase. And so kale can be Vata aggravating, right? In fact, that the Kale Limeade that we just made can be somewhat Vata aggravating as well, because we put in the kale and we also put in ginger. So some of those things, although ginger can be a little bit heating, it actually becomes a little bit tridoshic then. Okay, ginger, pungent and heating. Ah, yes, remember, so we added kale and ginger, and while the kale is cooling, the ginger's heating. It's light and digestive. And so it decreases Vata, ginger is neutral for Pitta, and it decreases Kapha. Okay, so we'll talk about the next couple of ingredients as well. All right, I need to start with we're going to do the sweet potato. Let me get the recipe for this really quick. So this is a sweet potato with kale and ginger. Sweet potato, of course, is really, really nice. It's easy to digest. And, you know, it's quite filling. So it's, you know, it can be a meal in and of itself, and it's easy to cook. So I'm going to get this started because it needs to boil. So we'll do this really quick. I'm going to clean this off. Sweet potato. I actually love just sticking a sweet potato in the oven and eating it just with a little bit of ghee. And sometimes that's just enough for a really nice meal. Again, feel free at any point in time to shoot any questions into the comments box. I'll try and check them as we go along. The funny thing is that my family are not really great fans of sweet potato, so this is a, hey, why don't you try it kind of dish for tonight. But I just love, again, I love the color of the sweet potato. I love the color of the kale as it goes together. Trying not to cut myself. So, okay, just a few cubes. So I'm not making a whole lot. I'm actually halving this recipe because the likelihood is that I'll be eating most of it, which is fine. And at least they get to try it. Yeah. So, okay. Sweet potato, one more. So I'm just going to throw the sweet potato into a pot. And you can come with me over to the stove. Okay, cool. So, oopsie, one more cut. There we go. Throw this into a pot, and I'm going to, whoopsie, runaway potato. Just cover the potatoes, however much you're going to use. You can use really 2 cups of sweet potato. I've probably got a cup and a half, and I'm just going to cover the sweet potato with enough water and let that boil. Go ahead and cover it. There we go. Easy enough. So I'm going to let that do its thing for a little bit, and then I'm actually going to move on. We got a little sideways again. I'm going to move on to the next one because it takes a little bit of time as well. So our next recipe is asparagus and mushroom rice with black pepper. Now, I did this last night and it was really, really good. And I did it with green beans because my family doesn't like asparagus. I like asparagus. So tonight I'm doing asparagus and green beans, and they're just going to have to pick it out, and that's just fine. So let's go back and look at our ingredients list again. So here we've got, oh, we didn't go through the sweet potato. Well, we'll talk through that. In this dish we've got asparagus, which is sweet, astringent, and cooling, and it's also tridoshic. And it's also soothing. So therefore, again, if we think about those qualities, sweet, astringent, cooling, tridoshic, it decreases vata, pitta, and kapha. Ooh. And asparagus is a great vegetable in mid-spring. So lots of it should be coming out here soon. They were a little bit small when I got them at the grocery store, but still really nice. Like I said, I'm actually going to add green beans for my family, and green beans have very similar qualities. It's also decreasing vata, pitta, and kapha, but sweet, astringent, and I think there's a pungent taste to it as well, if I recall. And so it's also just as nice. Green beans tend to be something that's a little bit more for the summertime, but again, I saw it at the grocery and it looked really good, and my family likes it. So fresh, again, is best. Let's talk through really quick the sweet potato, which I have on the stove. Obviously, from the name, sweet potato is sweet. It's also cooling. It's soft and heavy. And again, if you remember the qualities of Kappadosha, oily, dull, cool, thick, soft, stable, heavy, gross, smooth, and liquid. And here you've got cool, soft, and heavy. So like increases like, it's going to increase Kappadosha. But it will decrease because of the sweet quality, Pitta dosha, and then also that heavy quality, it decreases Vata dosha. So here in what we'll be making today, we'll get a flavor for everything of all the 6 tastes. But those 6 tastes again are sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, astringent. I ran out of fingers. Sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, astringent. And we'll get all of those today. Okay, so asparagus and mushroom. I'm going to go ahead. Last night I did half the recipe and my husband ate it all up, so I'm going to go ahead and do the full recipe today. And what do we, oh, so it's rice based. So many things to, let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in 2 cups of water, and that's for the rice. I think last week I talked about I tend to not measure things, but when it comes to rice, I measure things. Although I remember growing up, and my mom would make rice, and she would probably measure the rice, but not the water. She'd stick her hand in the pot because she just knew, okay, that's the amount of water that needed to go through. It was impressive. I couldn't figure that out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get that water started for the rice. It goes back here. Cool. And I think I mentioned last week that I'd probably, what did I make? Last week was, what did we have last week? It was a mushroom matar, that's right. And I said, I bet you I'm going to have leftover mushrooms. And so I did. And so we're going to be using mushrooms today. So we talked a little bit about mushrooms last week. Mushrooms can also be a little bit vata aggravating. They, if I recall, let's see here. Let's go ahead to this. So one of my favorite books, Ayurveda cookbooks, we sell this at our school at Santosha. It's the Ayurvedic Cooking for Self-Healing by Dr. Lad and his wife. And again, in the back, you've got these amazing tables that talk through what are the tastes and the actions on the dosha. So mushrooms we talked about last week. They're astringent, sweet, heating, and pungent. And so because of that, they can increase vata, decrease pitta, and decrease kapha. So we're going to go through and I'm going to saute these mushrooms in ghee. Yep. And again, ghee is nice in the springtime. We don't load up on it as much perhaps, but it's really quite easily digestible. So I'm going to heat up the ghee because I want to saute the mushrooms. And so I'll slice those up. And, you know, in my what do you call it? In my Ayurveda days, you'd get those cream of mushroom soups, and this rice actually tastes like I just stuck some cream of mushroom soup, and it has that texture, and it was amazing. So I'm pretty excited about it tonight again, because I was kind and let my husband have the most of it. So the nice thing about, hi Jake, no, you don't like mushrooms. That's Jake. I don't know if you got to see him. He doesn't hang out in the kitchen if I'm doing a lot of vegetarian stuff. He only comes if there's meat being prepared. But he knows, doesn't smell like meat, so he's gonna go back to his cage. Anyway, this whole meal is really easily digestible, which is nice. And so then you think about the time of day, and the sun is, oopsie, lost one. The sun is, lost two. And Jake just walked here, so we're just gonna call that compost. Done. Nice. The sun is the highest at noon, and so that's when digestion, is that ready for me? No, it's not. Digestion is the strongest at noon. So in the evening time, you know, typically we think about, oh, we're going to have a huge family dinner. And really the biggest meal that we should have is at lunchtime, because our digestion is the highest. So this meal tonight is easily digested, unless of course you add meat to it, like I said, which I will not, but they will. Okay, so let's crank this up. I like cooking with gas. For many years I was cooking with electric, and it just, yeah, gas is really nice. That's all I have to say. Okay, so, ooh, hot. So throw those in there. We're going to saute the mushrooms. I'm going to get a cup of rice. So I'm using basmati rice. Again, nice and easy. Saute the mushrooms. While that's preparing, I'm going to go ahead and take you over here with me. And like I said, I'm going to use a little bit of asparagus. You cut the ends off, right? Because they're not flexible. So that goes into compost. I'm cutting these into about 1.5 inches. I've already washed them, and then I'm going to go ahead and do some green beans as well. Again, 1.5 inches. Okay, like that. I've got water boiling, and these need to cook just a little bit more. So I just want to saute the mushrooms a little bit more. Really simple and easy. Again, it's nice because I had a week ago I had a mushroom dinner with the matar, and then still in bulk I bought the mushrooms, and I had some left over, and I can create another meal with it. So totally different palette. Last week was cuisine last week was Indian, and here we've got something that's a little bit more cleansing. So it's fun to be able to find these. Okay, so before, let's see. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I'm gonna go ahead, and it's interesting here in this recipe, they said you can actually save the sweet potato water and use it for another time that you're cooking. Brilliant. I'm probably not going to do that, so it's okay. I'm going to dump this out. I'll hang out for a little bit. Okay, so that's ready. Ouch. I like to steam my vegetables versus boil them. So let me go ahead and, yeah. I'm changing my mind here, shifting gears. So I'm gonna use this rice, or this water for the rice, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and just steam my greens first, just a little bit. Oopsie, one being lost. Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, because I had time. They actually cooked really, really well without steaming them last night into, take you over to the stove. They cooked really well. The green beans cooked really well without me having to steam them, so not a big deal. All right, this is ready, and here's the trick, is you actually put the rice in, which was a great trick, into the saute pan with the mushrooms and the ghee, so that it gets coated really nice. Yum. That's ready. Good. I think I need to add in, probably because I've boiled off a good chunk of water there. So now I put my rice and mushrooms into the pot. Let's switch this over here. Good. So this is the rice and mushrooms. I'll take you over once I get it all cleaned out here. Okay. Really smooth. There we go. I'm going to crank that up just a little bit. So here I can add in my pepper. So black pepper, just a little bit. Again, nice for the Cappadocia, but it gives a really nice flavor. Not a lot for me. Good. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and let that cook just for a few minutes on its own. So I'm going to bring it to a boil, and I'll take you over so you can come and see what it looks like inside the pot. Whoa, sorry for that. Oh, those are the greens that we had. And let's see, which direction are we going? This way. Sorry. Whoa, there we go. That's the mushroom and rice. Go ahead and cover that up. Let that cook off. Oh, that's right. Okay, oh, close this. So I'm gonna add in the greens in just a little bit. Let that come to a boil. So we've got the asparagus mushroom rice with black pepper starting. And let's go back and do the sweet potato with kale and ginger. It's really, again, pretty easy to do. So with that, we've got the potatoes that are already done. I'm going to take the ginger and go ahead and grate a little bit of ginger. So here it says 3/4 of an inch. Again, I'm halving this recipe just because I don't know that they're going to eat a lot of it, but we'll try it anyway. So,
And nuggets.
Ewan, do you want your green juice?
Yes.
Okay, come and get it.
Give it a second.
Okay. So, let me get the grater here. I like something a little smaller, but so ginger. It's a really great digestive, and even just having water with a couple slices of fresh ginger is really good to get your digestion going in the morning, like a ginger tea. You can add in, again, lime or lemon depending on your dosha. So pitta dosha, lime. Kapha dosha, you can do lemon. Same thing with vata dosha. Yum. When you have a really big grater, it all sticks to the grater. So I'm just going to leave that on there. Here, we're going to go ahead. Like I said, I'm not always a big fan of boiling my vegetables. I like them. It's not quite boiled. I like them steamed, and this is where I get stuck because now I've used my steam pot already. But let's go ahead. Try this. Ideally, again, you're not using pots that have a coating on it, but when you run out, this is what you got. No problem. I'm apologizing because with the whole camera thing because it's all backwards for me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and steam the kale instead of boiling. All right, this already started boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and put my greens in there. Yum! Looky there, looky there. Fits perfectly. Oh, yeah. Come and take a look inside the pot. Ooh. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. And it already smells good. Again, if you like mushrooms, it smells really, really good. Reminds me of that cream of mushroom smell when I was a little kid. Okay, so I'm going to steam the kale just a little bit. Again, I think the more mature kale versus the baby kale is probably most ideal, but like I said, it's on sale, so we're going to go with that. It says to put in about 1.5 pounds of kale. I'm just going with what's going to look really nice against the amount of sweet potato that I have. So let's steam that just a wee bit. Voila! And this becomes super, super easy. Here's the green juice, which is still not separated, which is so amazing. Ewan, green juice? He's procrastinating having green juice. It's okay. Really, really yummy. And again, like super, super easy to make. So all of these recipes I'll put in the comment section. And again, you know, make sure that you adjust it based on your dosha. But most important is to just have fun with it, right? Anytime that you're cooking. So there's some really simple guidelines to cooking. Hold on. And one is, let's keep track. Hey Siri, set timer for 13 minutes.
Okay, 13 minutes and counting.
Okay. So rice typically takes about 12 to 15 minutes. And since I've added in that stuff, the veggies, I'm gonna let it just cook a little bit more. So I'm gonna get it to a boil and then bring it down to a simmer. So we'll try that here in just a little bit. And oh yes, so this book, some really lovely tips around proper eating habits. And I'd say even proper cooking habits. So proper cooking habits is have it be a fun and enjoyable experience. Cooking shouldn't be stressful. And also be aware of what is your temperament when you're cooking, right? Do I feel tired? Do I feel angry? And maybe have somebody else cook if that's the case, or do something different that is easier. So cooking should be enjoyable because it gets really transferred, or it becomes really prevalent in the food. And I think one of the most memorable experiences I have around that was actually going to an ashram. And I'm going to turn this off. And in the ashram, the people that are cooking, they do it with such devotion, and the food was so simple and it was so delicious. So yes, cook. So overeating things are improper eating habits. Overeating, eating soon after a full meal, drinking too much water or no water during a meal, drinking chilled water during a meal, eating at the wrong time of day, either too early or too late. So this will be ready here in about 5:30, which is a good time. Eating too much heavy food or too little light food. Eating without real hunger, so you just eat because you can. Emotional eating, and drinking fruit juice or eating fruit with a meal. So that's why, again, we started with this green juice. We'll give because there's an apple in there, we'll give a little bit of time for kind of that to settle in before we dive in to our meal. Okay, that started boiling, so I'm going to bring this down to low heat so that it simmers for the next 12 minutes or so. Okay, my kale got really bright green. So I'm going to switch. So that's done. And we're going back to sweet potato with kale and ginger. So in a separate pot, add the diced sweet potatoes, just that we already did that. Grate and saute the ginger in sunflower oil for 30 seconds, then add the sweet potatoes and kale. So I'm going to not do that. Again, I like to kind of mix things up every once in a while. I'm going to go back to my saute pan. Go back to my saute pan where I had my mushrooms and my sauteing. So put that there for a moment. And it says sunflower oil, which is fine. Again, I'm going to choose to use ghee because I love it. Same knife. This was my issue last week. I have the same knife that I used for my ghee. I'm going to use it so it doesn't contaminate my ghee jar. Put that in there. And like I said, it asked for the ginger. I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit of cumin seeds into it because I like cumin. Why do I like cumin? It's good for digestion as well. So let's go and go back to our handy dandy chart. And so cumin is pungent and bitter. It's cooling. That's why I like it. And like I said, it's a digestive. And so cumin decreases vata, pitta, and kapha. Ready for it, Ewan? Here you go. I don't think the cat wants it. Okay, so here's my... How is it, Ewan, compared to yesterday? It's better than yesterday. Too much ginger yesterday. It was spicy, he said. So, lesson learned. Okay. Medium heat. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of a pinch of cumin seeds. And I'll bring you over so that you can start to see what's happening in that pot. There we go. So you'll see they're starting to dance just a little bit. That's what I want them to do. And as they're dancing, hold on, Ewan. Mama's cooking. I'm going to go ahead and add in the ginger that I grated in. Let me see if I can bring you over. Hold on. I know it's getting a little goofy here. Let's do this. Sorry about that. This is when the photographer and the cook, or the camera person and the cook, are the same. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my ginger. Oof, smells good. I probably could have added in a little bit more ginger. Okay, there we go. Don't do that across. Okay. You can always take it off the heat, right, if it gets too hot. Now I can go ahead and add in the sweet potatoes. Yum. Oh, and the kale. Which then, I don't think that I needed to saute it, but I did. Go ahead and take that down. Oh yeah. How, let's see. There we go. How pretty. Isn't that so pretty? Yum. What a beautiful color. Kale and sweet potato. Yum. Yay. All right. So, I've turned off the heat. I'll just let that come together a little bit. Yum. So the ginger and the sweet potato together, even with the cumin, really fun flavors that just combine. Again, the kale adds a really nice color to everything. So let's see, Siri. Hey Siri, how much time do I have left on my timer? I have about 5 minutes, it says, left on my timer. So bonus time here. I this morning made avocado toast for Ed and for breakfast, and so I have a leftover avocado. So I'm going to make a or leftover part of an avocado. I'm going to make a really quick dessert. Unplanned, so this is bonus for everybody, including myself. Except Ewan probably doesn't really want it so much. So, okay. Back here. Brian, I need you to help me with my kitchen. Just kidding. All right. So I'm going to take the food processor out. I know most people probably would use the whole avocado in any one sitting, but we didn't today, so I'm going to make a quick avocado chocolate mousse. Super, super easy. So, because I have time. And I'm gonna go ahead and like I said, it's just my leftover avocado. Compost. And the nice thing about this is this avocado mousse, I made some again the other day because my avocados were going bad. And I just put it in the freezer in these little jars, and then I can just eat them whenever I want. First got introduced to this fun little recipe when I was with Santosha in our Bali retreat a few years ago, and we went to this restaurant, and of course, you know, it's February and it was hot, and they had this amazing chocolate avocado mousse. It was so good. Okay, so I've got an avocado in there. I'm throwing in some cocoa powder. And how much? I'm kind of just guessing. I'm going to put in like a quarter cup for an avocado. One avocado, maybe a little bit more. Okay. And you don't have to do this, but I'm going to anyway. Meaning you can omit it. I'm adding in just a little bit of non-dairy milk, maybe about a tablespoon, just a little bit. And my sweetener of choice, again for me, based on my dosha, is maple syrup. So I'm going to pour in maple syrup to taste. And a smidge of sea salt, just a little bit, because chocolate and salt. Put that in my food processor. One more round. I don't know. I get pretty excited about this because it's so super easy. Maple syrup. So my timer is done on my rice, supposedly. Look at this. Oh my gosh. So good. Chocolate avocado mousse. So again, just whatever I have. I had less than a whole avocado, threw in some cocoa powder, a little bit of, well, not a little bit, it was a good amount of sweetener, and for me, maple syrup. And then I added in a little bit of non-dairy milk to make it a little bit more milky. Oh my gosh, it tastes just like chocolate pudding. It's so good. So I actually, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and transfer that into, I'll go ahead and transfer that into a couple of jars and put a couple jars in the freezer for tomorrow. Okay. Typically when you're cooking rice, I think you can actually do this in a rice cooker. But typically when you're cooking rice, you just let it sit and not touch it. But I had to take a peek, and you have to take a look because it looks amazing. Okay, come on over, and there it is. Ah, the asparagus, mushroom, green bean rice with black pepper. There we have it. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, and I'll take a picture of our plating for tonight and post that on here. Again, if you'd like to have the recipes, I'll go ahead and put the recipes that it was all based on in the comment section. And today, again, our menu was Kale Limeade and sweet potato, ginger, and kale, and asparagus, green bean, mushroom, rice. And with that, we were able to get all 6 tastes, the sweet with the sweet potatoes and the apple, of course. And also in here, we've got the sweetness of, I think we said, the mushrooms as well. And also the rice. So sweet, sour. So in the sour, we ended up getting that with our limeade, salty. Did I add salt to it? It's a good question. Oh, I added salt to the chocolate mousse, but that doesn't count. But certainly you can add salt to any of this. Sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, astringent, and of course with our going back here with the ginger in many of the recipes that we had today, the kale in many of the recipes, we were able to get pungent, bitter, astringent. Again, you know, when you're cooking in an Ayurvedic with an Ayurvedic mindset, you want to go ahead and make sure that you have all 6 tastes at least throughout the day, if not all in a meal. And hey, Ewan, what do we say about dessert?
Dessert comes first.
Dessert first. So I start with chocolate mousse as my dessert. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'm happy to address them here for the next few minutes while I finish my green juice. And yeah, thanks so much. Next week, oh, I already have an idea. So next week, no mushrooms because I'm done with those. But I think we're going to do a quick chickpea curry. So going back and doing that as well. But certainly today's menu is great for the springtime, cleansing, keeping things easily digestible and light, and using a lot of the things, you know, starting to use a lot of the ingredients that are coming into season, asparagus, and a lot of the bitter and astringent, which is important for the springtime and detoxing. Cool. All right. Oopsie, if there aren't any questions or comments, I'll go ahead and end our session today. And like I said, I'll post a picture of our plating, and then I'll also add in the recipes that a lot of this was based on for today. Thanks so much. Have a great evening. See you next week.